Good evening and welcome to another episode of GLP with an ostomy, or GLP-1 with an ostomy. Okay, you guys, well, here we go. Bye! Okay, I will not keep you in suspense any longer. We didn't even have to have a showdown in Motown. Boy, I was geared up and ready, okay? But I didn't need to. I walked in, and first of all, my appointment was at 2 o'clock, and the doctor got hung up. He got tied up at the hospital, I guess, with the patient emergency or whatever. And so actually he didn't come in until about 2:45. So I took my crocheting, as I always do, to all appointments and things where I know I have to sit. I always take my crocheting, so I was fine. So anyway, when I got there, the secretary was there, and I just thought, okay, it's either getting ready to happen now or it's going to be cordial. But I approached her cordially. I went up to the window, and I said, okay. I said, let's get this pre-authorization done once and for all. So I presented her, hold on just a second. Ooh, y'all, I am so happy. I know this is off subject, but I told y'all about the volunteer thing that was supposed to be happening this past weekend for me, and they were going to take care of my next door neighbors also. Well, my next door neighbor just knocked on my door. He and this guy, and the guy wanted to know if he could go to my backyard and on the side up front, because the neighbor is getting ready to get his house, new siding all around his house, and a deck, I believe. So with that, you know, they got the roof flat, 2 years ago. So with that, now I'm seeing them cutting down trees back there and hauling brush. Yay! Because those are the same branches that are hanging over my roof. So if my volunteers ever show up, fine, they can get what's on my fence line or whatever, but I'm just glad to see that this stuff is going now. So that's going to make my yard look better too. So, yep. But anyway, and then also, before I even go any further, boom, I plucked my first bell pepper ever on today. This one is kind of small, but because he had changed to the golden yellow color that it was supposed to, it's called a California gold or something like that. It's perfect. So I was like, I'm gonna get it even if he's small. But I have another one growing. I actually have 4 more on one pepper plant, but one of them is so big, that thing is darn near as big as my head. It's huge. It's bigger than my hand for sure. Ooh, oh man, I wish I could put the camera on all this brush that's being taken from the side of the house. Woohoo, yay! Okay, let me stop. Let me focus my attention on this. Okay, so I presented the secretary with, because I wrote everything down. Let me make sure I'm on the right page. Where's my magoos? Nope. See, I'm glad I looked. Hold on. I'm getting there, y'all. Wait a minute. Nope. Oh, it's the next page. Okay, here it is. Okay, so I had all the information written right here. And so I explained to her, and she was like, no need to explain. She said, they sent us a form. She said that the Medicare GLP program, because come to find out, I wasn't the only patient. And see, she was making this same mistake with everybody. I think I was the first. But since then, because it's been a month, it's like 3 other patients who are trying to get on the Zepbound, and she kept running into the same doggone problem with everybody. So they ended up sending her a form, and I told her, I hope you made copies of the form. They sent her the form to fill out. The form asks the questions, and so the doctor has to fill out the form. So it's a good thing I made the appointment. Okay, so anyway, so I said, well, I'm here today, so hopefully he can get this form filled out and you can fax it, you know, as soon as he fills it out and signs it. So anyway, that's exactly what happened. So I didn't even have to explain. She was like, They should have been sending these forms from the beginning, which they didn't. And my doctor even said they did not send these forms. He said this was so easy. He said, but at first it was confusing. And I guess for those who, have never dealt with it, dealt with this before, the endocrinologists, they're zipping through because they're used to this. But my doctor wasn't used to this. Okay, so anyway, I'll tell you what the form says. So if anybody end up subscribing or at least watching this video and you are having trouble, but you qualify for the GLP-1 bridge program, this will help you. Okay, so the GLP bridge people ended up sending this. Okay, so at the top of it, first of all, it came through the fax and it shows the date that it was received on the 30th of July. And it was received at 5:37 p.m. So when she came in on the 31st, which was Friday, so she received this on Thursday. And when she came in on Friday, then this was waiting on her because the office closes at 5 o'clock. But they're open late on Fridays. Okay, so it says professional primary care. Okay, so it says Medicare. I'm going to read it to you so you can know what it says. But if you're having trouble, have your doctor. The GLP people cannot call the doctor's office. The only way they can communicate is if the doctor calls them or the pharmacist. At that point, they can communicate. So I don't know if my doctor called them or it might have been from me calling them and telling them the issue, and they were well aware of it because they were trying to work, and everything. But they reached out. How they ended up reaching out is I gave them my doctor's number and I gave them the fax number. So they just sent the fax. Hey, they can do that. So they received this fax and they wasn't expecting it or anything. Unless, that one said she was going to call her. This was on Thursday, the one GOP lady. But I found out on today, they're not supposed to call anybody. Now, they can receive calls and talk to them that way. So I don't know how she pulled it off. But apparently, so if she called, then she probably told the secretary, I'm going to just send you this form. Or I don't know how it happened. I'm just glad it happened. But it says, the title says Medicare GLP-1 Bridge Program Prior Authorization Request Form. So it says submit electronic PA, and it tells you where to submit it or fax it, and it has the fax number that I've told you about, the 800-530-2404. Okay, it says if your patient has a Part D eligible diagnosis of moderate to severe obstructive sleep apnea, non-cirrhotic metabolic dysfunction associated, wait, hold on. I'm trying to read it so I can see. Something of hepatitis, still of hepatitis, MASH, with moderate to advanced liver scarring, fibrosis, type 2 diabetes, or your patient is eligible for coverage under Part D because the drug is prescribed to reduce risk of major adverse cardiovascular CV events in adults with established cardiovascular disease, you must submit any requests for GLP coverage to the patient's Part D plan. Okay. And I do have sleep apnea, but it doesn't matter because, but I qualify, through the other things. Okay. Although he did put that I do have sleep apnea because it asked a question, but then it asked other questions as well. So we'll find out. Okay. It says if this request is to reduce excess body weight and maintain weight reduction, which is the reason he placed on here, weight reduction, and the member does not have a Part D eligible diagnosis, continue this prior authorization request through the GLP-1 bridge or Foundayo, Wegovy injections and tablets, or Zepbound KwikPen. Okay. Now it asks for the patient's name, which is me, my member beneficiary, which is actually my Part D number, you know, your, what you call it, your Part D ID number, your date of birth, my group number, which is to my regular insurance, my address, city, state, and zip code. Then it asks for my doctor's name, his address, phone number, fax number, tax ID, and all that. Then it goes on, it says requested drugs, submit one, and I mean select one, and he puts Zepbound QuickPen. Okay. Then it says, if your patient has Part D eligible diagnosis of moderate to severe sleep apnea, OSA, and those other things that I mentioned before, it says Part D, because it says your patient is eligible for coverage under Part D because the drug is prescribed to reduce risk or major adverse, you know, and all that. I read that before. It says you must submit any request for GOMP coverage through the patient Part D plan. And you know, this is Part D anyway. Okay, so he put acknowledged. Then it says, does the patient have moderate to severe obstructive sleep apnea? He put yes. Does the patient have the liver? No. I'm kind of going through quickly. It says, does the patient has type 2 diabetes? No. Then it says, please select a range that includes the patient's body mass index, BMI, at the time of GL1P therapy initiation. Note, if the patient's BMI has been reduced after starting a GLP-1, the initial BMI should still be selected. Oh, so that's good. So like if I lose weight, let's say I lose 120 pounds in, let's say 4 months, we know that's a lie, but it says you still continue the reduction in combination with lifestyle. Oh, it says continue the request if the patient is at least 18 years of age and the drug is used to reduce excess body weight and maintain weight reduction in combination with lifestyle modification, including structured nutrition and physical activity, unless physical activity is not clinically appropriate. And we'll get to that. Guess who can't join the gym, y'all? And I'll tell y'all about that after I'm through with this. Okay, so it asked for the BMI. My BMI was 40 or more. Oh, Lord. I thought my BMI was about 30. But I'm happy to say he weighed me today. He was like, we're doing your weight. He was like, because we know you're going to get this, so let's do your weight now so I can chart it. I lost 2 pounds, y'all. So I'm under 260. Yay! Because y'all know I was 261. I'm now 259. But thank God for that. So this water I've been drinking, I've been trying not to eat as late. I've been trying to sleep better. I've been doing my little hand weight exercises, which I'm going to have to continue doing for now. And I've just been trying to move, you know, a little more. Just that little bit dropped me 2 pounds in a month. So that's good. Slap me 5. Y'all cheer me on. Y'all respond and say, go, Q, go. Okay? So I'm happy about that. Okay. Then it says, does the patient have prediabetes as defined by the American Diabetes Association guidelines? No. He read me my doggone, what you call it? The A1C. My A1C was 3 points from being pre-diabetic. I was like, doctor, that A1C was done a year ago. I was like, I'm probably over the number now. He was like, but I cannot mark it because this is the last one I took. So he's going to do blood. He's going to be getting blood work. He said he's going to wait until I get the medicine. Then we're going to do the baseline blood work. Because I told him I'm still not starting immediately. I still want to prep. Everybody says, just take the shot. Yes, I am going to just take the shot. But I need to get my groceries together. I need to get my vitamins together. You know, it's a few things I have to get. So we're looking at, let's say they approve me because 72 hours, it's been faxed. I watched her do it, okay? And I have the copy. This is a copy of the fax. And it has the time on her part and everything. So, right on the other side, on the last page, it has her part of the fax. And so, but their part of when they faxed it was sent out on the 30th and received on the 31st. I know because it was faxed out at 5:37 p.m. But today's fax is on the back. Okay, back to the paper because we're almost done. Okay, then it says, does the patient have symptomatic peripheral artery disease? No. Does the patient have previous stroke or myocardial infarction, which is a heart attack? No. And does the patient have heart failure with preserved ejection fraction? And the answer was no. Okay, then the next question is, and we're just about done, does the patient have uncontrolled hypertension defined as systolic blood pressure above 140 Hg or diastolic blood pressure above 90? No. And I hadn't even taken my medicine today because I went to vote first before I went. So I left the house at 1 o'clock and I forgot to take my medicine before I left, my blood pressure pill. My blood pressure was normal. I'm like, after all this stress and stuff, here I am with a normal blood pressure. It was like 120/70 or something crazy, okay, that it normally doesn't run. Okay, then it says, does the patient have chronic kidney disease stage 3 or above? And he said no. And so then he signed it. Dr. Reddy signed it and he dated it. Okay, so then that's it. That was the end of it. Okay, so simple. So just like I said, if any of you or if anybody happens to come to this channel and you're having trouble getting on the GLP-1 program through the Medicare Bridge program, have your doctor to request a prior authorization form. And remember, the phone number to I'm gonna give you the phone number. Okay, so the Medicare GLP Bridge phone number, and I mean they answer immediately. My doctor was impressed, and so was the secretary. I was like, they're gonna answer the phone as soon as it rings, and sure enough, they did. They were like, wow. But anyway, the Medicare GLP-1 Bridge phone number is 1-855-273-0102. So you can have your doctor to call that number, and you get the prompts at the beginning. Once it picks up, which is immediately, it gives the prompts. Are you a pharmacist, a healthcare provider, or the patient? So he'll press the correct number, either 1, 2, or 3. And so then he can ask questions, but then the doctor will need to provide your Medicare ID number to prove that, you're the patient, and then his number, his tax ID and whatever. Okay, so, and then their fax number is 1-800-530-2404. Once this form or the prior authorization has been received by them, which is immediate, they usually have an answer within, sometimes before, 72 hours. And I think with my case, it's probably going to be before, but even if it takes 72 hours, that's fine with me. That will be Friday. And so Friday, if it goes through, I will go pick up my prescription, and then I can be ready to roll, as the title says. So yes, after she faxed it, I received a copy. So I have this, and she was like, so if they come back with any more problems, then you have your copy, I have my copy. I was like, oh, we got it now. I was like, we got it. I was like, this is what was supposed to be done July 1st, okay, or July 9th. So at least I beat the buzzer on a month. The 9th would be a month since this all started. So, but still, I'm still behind the 8 ball. But my doctor said, don't worry about that. He was like, we're going to be okay. So my doctor had me in his office over an hour. First of all, the first thing he mentioned was, we're going to do the blood work. He has taken the time since all this began, and since he has, right now he has 4 patients. I'm one of them. And then he has 3 more patients who he has written the prescription for the Zepbound. He said, now that I see that, the patients, he's like, I thought you were going to be the only one. He was like, but I have others. And I was like, you probably going to get more. He said, so he was like, I read the packet. He said, and I learned about the medication. I've talked to other physicians, which is good. And so he was very knowledgeable about it. So I felt comfortable enough to start asking him questions. So I told him, I said, my number one concern, I said, because this medication along, Manjaro is the exact same medicine and Zepbound. I said, because I don't have diabetes, I said, but I have hypoglycemia, which is low blood sugar. I've had that for years. I said, will it drop my blood sugar? Will it cause, any adverse effects, since this is a medicine that also treats diabetes? He said it should not. He was like, first of all, you're using it for weight loss and you're using a lower dose of it. And he said exactly what I had said. What did I say to y'all from the very beginning, at the beginning in my introductory video? I said, I want to stay on the lowest dose possible. And I hope not to have to go above 5. Because a lot of people say that 0.5 is their sweet spot. I'm praying. And my doctor told me today, he was like, I'm going to tell you, he was like, really? He's like, you're what we would call a lightweight. He said, one of my patients weighed well over 400. I was like, oh, okay. He was like, so one of them have to lose twice as much as you. He was like, really? He said, once you've lost, he's like, you're doing good once you get to the 40, 50 pound mark. He was like, because that'll put you, he was like, it won't put you below 200. But if I lose 50 pounds, well, I need to lose 59 pounds to hit my first goal. My first goal is to get under 200 again. So that would be it, 199. That would mean that I've lost 59 pounds. Okay, that's good. So, and then that would make me, my second goal is to get to 150. Like I said, where's my cane is outside. But like I said, think of that cane that you saw a few weeks ago with eyes. I said, as small as I can get. I don't care if I look like a bobblehead. Okay, every time somebody see me and say, you look like a bobblehead, I'm gonna go, okay? Because I need room for, mistakes and stuff later. So I'm gonna just try to, I'm going for the gusto. I'm gonna try to lose as much as I can. But my actual goal is I said anywhere between 150 and 170. I actually, when I got down to 185, I believe, was the lowest weight after my surgery. When I got to 185, really, and they had me working out because I had to be rehabilitated. So I was on the bike, I was doing the strength training. When I had to do that month of rehab, so they had me working. And so my muscles, I wasn't sagging or looking crazy, and skin wasn't hanging. Only thing was I had a turkey neck. But even that straightened out, because the first place I lost was in my face. And then I started losing my thighs and they were hanging. And then, of course, my belly and all that once the swelling was going down from the ostomy. And so when they got me doing the exercises with the bike, I was doing the treadmill. They had me doing everything, climbing stairs. And so while I was doing that rehab, in that month's time that I did that rehab, I was tight, okay? That's why I'm sitting up here wanting to go to the gym, because I know what the gym can do, okay? As far as the muscles are concerned. But anyway, and tightening up of the skin. So I didn't look like I looked different. Yeah, I ain't gonna lie. I gotta find one of those pictures when I was at my smallest. I'm gonna find one. And I'm gonna show it. I'm gonna put it in one of my thumbnails, but give me time to do that. But anyway, and you'll see how different I looked. Okay, I looked totally different. But anyway, in fact, I looked like one of my aunts. Everybody was like, "Oh my God, we didn't know that you looked like Aunt Lola." And I did. I looked exactly like my aunt. I was like, wow. So that's coming up again. Aunt Lola in heaven, get ready, girl. I'm going to be your imposter once again. But anyway, so anyway, I wanted to, I was like, doctor, I was like, okay. I was like, the chronic illness program at the gym, I was like, I'm getting ready to call them and get set up with that. He was like, nope, no, you're not. I'm like, what you mean? No, I'm not. He said, he's like, first of all, we're going slow and steady. First, he wants to keep an eye. He wants to do my baseline blood work And he said, every month he wants to do my blood work. He said, as long as you're losing, even if you're losing slow, he said, we're staying on the lowest dose possible. And so that's the part I agreed. I was like, doctor, I am not. Because see, at first he was wanting to start me off on a high dose before he knew about the medicine. He's trying to kill me. And so now he's on board with the lowest dose possible. When he mentioned it today, I was like, doctor, I told you that at the beginning. He was like, I know. He was like, but that's what we're going to do. He said, and each month we're going to monitor you. He was like, even if you've only lost a pound. He was like, he's like, until you stall, he said, we will not increase the dosage. He was like, and there may be a time where we increase the dose to get you moving again, and then we may lower it again as long as the weight is moving. He was like, we're going to try to play around with that 2.5 and that point and that 5 or whatever the next dosage is. He said, if we have to go higher, he's like, I'm going to monitor you. And so I was like, well, doctor, why can't I go to the gym? I don't want to lose muscle mass. And I was like, and they have the dietitian, the other people who are chronically ill. He said, I understand that. He was like, you will get there. He's like, let's give it at least a couple of months to see how you do. Oh, let me take off these magoos. He said, let's give it at least a couple of months to see how you do. He said another thing. He's like, I'm sending a prescription in for Zofran. He said the other doctors I've talked to, he said with their patients who are ill, chronically ill like you, he's like, a lot of them have complained of nausea. He was like, so we're doing this in advance. So he called in the prescription for Zofran. And what's the dosage? Golly. I have to look on my app because the prescription is ready. I'm going to pick it up tomorrow for the Zofran. I think it's 4 milligrams or 4 or whatever. And they gave me the generic, which is called Wanderan or something. I forget, but it begins with an O. Owner Duran. If you've taken the generic of Zofran, you know which medicine I'm talking about. And let me know if the 4 milligrams worked for you or whatever. And I have the kind that dissolves on the tongue because of the ostomy. Pills go through me. So I either do the chewable with pills, or I will get the kind, if it comes in a dissolvable version, my doctor always writes the prescription for the dissolvable. So then we talked about my goals. And then he said, back to the gym, he was like, now, he said, if once you start the medicine, he's like, we'll give it to probably, he said, the first of the year. He said, if you are doing good on it and you're losing, he said, then, and he's like, because with the weight that you lose, he's like, if you're not complaining. And he mentioned to me, and I saw this in some videos, but I can't remember because I watched so many videos about the Zepbound. But in one video, this one lady said that she ended up getting the Zepbound, plus it's this autoimmune disease drug made by Lilly, and she's self-pay through the whatever thing they do for self-pay people. But she gets this medicine called Tallaz, Tallaz or something like that. And that's to treat autoimmune disease. And I believe she said she had lupus. And she said that the combination of the two have worked miracles with her. But then I heard other people say, and it might have been, I know you all have probably seen the show Downsized. I subscribe to their channel. They're on every day, either 2 or 3 times a day. They interview people. They talk about their journey on Zepbound, and both of them are in maintenance now. And also they talk about the latest news reports. Well, I believe it was they who mentioned that they have found that Zepbound is excellent for people with inflammation. So people with chronic autoimmune disease, arthritis, and these types of things, people, they said it's being reported that people are noticing a change overnight after the first shot, after the first injection. And so since I have this spinal stenosis and I'm on this walker, and it's all inflammation, because on days where I'm not inflamed, and see, my doctor had me taking a leave for the inflammation. My neurologist, he had me taking a leave. He had given me a pain patch and all this stuff. But then my sister bought me this, and this is I can either do a regular massage or I can do a heated massage. And so you just turn it on. Hold on. Wait, the heat is right here. So the heated, it shows red, and then this one for non-heated shows blue. But it works your, because when you have spinal stenosis, it's something in your spinal canal right at your tailbone that closes. And so it affects your legs, and it gets inflamed, and it affects your whole spine. And the fact that I have MS on top of that, it has affected me. And so I'm on the walker as a result. That mess hit last year. In fact, one of my cousins, I didn't even know I had it. I knew that I wasn't feeling, my back was kind of stiff, but I had been doing gardening and, and stuff like that. And I didn't think anything was wrong. So I went to our little Grow Club plant sale event, and I was struggling, and my cousin noticed it. She was like, Q, do you feel okay? I was like, you know what? I think I pulled my back or something. I was like, but I can't stand on my legs long. So she was like, well, you sit down and I'll get your plants for you. And that's what she did. She was the one who noticed it. 2 days later, I was in the hospital because not only was I having an MS attack, and then the spinal stenosis, it was actually an attack of that. But I didn't get diagnosed with the spinal stenosis until November. No, it was beyond that. It was February of this year. But from November, I was trying to get an MRI done, and the hospital kept saying I owed this money. It was a long story, and they kept canceling me. I didn't get in. We fought from either September or November of last year for this MRI, clear up until February of this year, and I finally got it. And then that's when I was diagnosed with the spinal stenosis. So actually, it was in the early stages back then where it wasn't so bad. I didn't have to use the walker constantly, but it got worse. And the weight doesn't help. And so I was telling my sister, I have a feeling that once my butt starts going down and I start going down in weight, my back might straighten back up enough to where that spinal stenosis, I was like, in the inflammation that causes the pain. And every day it doesn't hurt. I don't have to use this massager every single day. Now today is hurting because I was out in the greenhouse planting a gooseberry. Okay. I was repotting a gooseberry, and then I was bending over and doing things I shouldn't have been doing. So now, right now, my back hurts. But if I just sit still, it might calm down on its own. I don't use this thing every single day. Sometimes I might go a week or two without using it, but I use it when I need to. And I don't have to take the pill. Even with me, the Aleve, even if I know I'm inflamed, this seems to do the trick. That's why I think that the weight loss is really going to make a difference here with this spinal stenosis. I told my doctor, if I can get off of this walker, even if I have to use the cane, but if I can get off of this walker, I will consider this a victory. So that will be considered, if I get off the walker, most people call that non-scale victory or an NSV. This will be a scale victory, okay? So, but I will have other, victories and stuff. So anyway, so knowing that I've lost 2 pounds, I was happy about that. What else did we discuss? We discussed, the goals and everything, the goal weight, and he seems to think, he said, actually, for your height, 150 is the weight, is considered a normal weight for you. But he said, like, it's going to be different for you because you haven't, I don't think I ever weighed 150. Wait a minute. When did I get fat? 1979, at the age of 14, that's when I got fat. And before then, I always wore, probably from the age of 10. I remember when I was 8, I was in kids' clothes. But by the time I turned 10 or 11, I was always in a size 12. I wasn't fat, but I was always a solid kid. And I was a skinny kid. I'm gonna show some kid pictures too of me. I was very skinny as a kid, and I was tall. My sister, who's older than me by a year, she was short. And so she's only 5. My sister is like 5'2". She's short. And me, I'm 5'6". And so anyway, but even as a kid, I was always taller than her. And so I was more solid. But I was never fat. I remember wearing a size 12. And I know that was pre-junior high, like maybe 6th grade or 5th grade. I was in a size 12, and I stayed in a size 12. I remember being in a size 12 in 7th grade. I was in a size 12 in 8th grade. Got to 9th grade, which was in 1979, and next thing I know, I was in a 24, okay? I just, boom, it was almost like overnight. I quit growing, as I quit growing taller, I started growing out. But so at size 12, that was my lowest, and I weighed more than 150 back then when I was in a size 12. I believe I was like 170, 160-ish, somewhere around there. So, yep, so I was in a size 12. I remember that. So we'll see how everything comes out. It's some things I'm missing too, because like I said, we were in there over an hour. But the main things were the exercise. So I didn't tell him, but I've been doing this anyway. So it has, when I asked him why I couldn't do the exercises and stuff, he said, we want to watch you. He was like, because of your chronic illness, he said, we don't want to trigger anything else. He said, remember, he said, number one, you have the ostomy. He was like, and lifting weights and doing all that strenuous stuff. Because see, I'm on a 10-pound weight restriction for life. This is 5 pounds. I cannot go anywhere over 10 pounds for life. Otherwise, I stand a risk of getting a hernia or even an ostomy injury itself. So he said, that's number one. He said, number two, you have MS, remember? I was like, well, the spinal stenosis done took precedence. I was like, but yeah, I do remember. He was like, do you want to have an MS attack through all this? He's like, and let me tell you, he's like, if you don't have an MS attack, he was like, this is going to help your MS. He said, if that inflammation starts subsiding, he said, you are going to feel better, MS wise and everything. He's like, any type of inflammation that you're dealing with, he said, is going to feel better. So I'm just happy to hear that. Like I said, I'm not looking, some of this stuff is for life. The ostomy is for life. MS is for life. The Crohn's disease is for life. No amount of weight loss is going to get rid of that. But if I can improve upon my health challenges and eliminate some, I know I'll probably eliminate the blood pressure pills. I'll eliminate probably the cholesterol pill that I take. I'll, for the hyperlipidemia, I'll probably eliminate the sleep apnea. So I won't have to use the CPAP anymore. If I can eliminate and improve, that is my goal. More so, the weight for me is the bonus, okay? And I'm not doing it for vanity. I remember the first time I had weight loss surgery, he couldn't tell me nothing. Remember I told y'all? Well, then, and then the second time, I didn't think much about it. It was like, I was happy I lost the weight, but I wasn't vain about it. The first time, oh yeah, I was vain. I was all up in the mirror every time I walked past. I'm doing this, I was pictures and you name it. The second time, okay, whatever. That third time when I got even smaller, the smallest I had ever been, you couldn't tell me. I was in that camera every day. I was getting it on, okay? Then, I forgot to tell y'all the story, okay? The funny story. Oklahoma, my stoma. I tell people all the time, and I've mentioned this on my other channels. I have a quiet stoma. Every now and then, it might make a noise and while I'm filming, and I'll say, shut up, Oklahoma. But it's usually real quick to the point, and I don't even think my subscribers even hear it. It's just I bring attention to it when I do that. So anyway, I said the only time this stoma decides to make noise is around people. If I'm in an elevator, it never fails. If I'm sitting in a waiting room, a crowded waiting room, it never fails. Oh, when I had cataract surgery last year and I was in a waiting room with probably 20 or 30 people, I'm like, so I put my hand over it and you can hear it underneath. I'm like, shut up. So I was pushing on it because I was like, maybe it's gas or something. It just started to make noise, and it will do that, okay? And it wasn't gas. It was just doing it, just like today. All I know is that I changed my bag earlier today because every time, as a courtesy, anytime I go to the doctor, I don't care if they're going to be looking or not, because I just changed my bag on Sunday, and so this is Tuesday, Monday, Tuesday, so it's only been 2 days. Normally, I change once a week my bag, because the longer you leave it on, the better if you have a good seal. So it really was no reason for me to change it, but I always change it as a courtesy if I'm going to the doctor, because you never know. But the bag was already clean, but this one was super clean. So I just went on and changed it. So that could be why, because I used my head and shoulders to wash around it. So I kind of woke it up, basically, because I was fiddling with it right before I left to go vote and all that stuff. So we're sitting there and we're talking, and all of a sudden the doctor, he was telling me something, and all of a sudden I'm thinking to myself, and this is what I'm thinking as it began to happen. Oklahoma said, "Let me show you my impression of a barge coming in on the river." Rump, rump. I was like, what the? I was like, "Sorry, doctor, this is my stoma." He was like, "I know you can't help it. That's fine. They make noise." I was like, my stoma never makes noise. I was like, unless I'm around people. I was like, that's the only time this thing gets crazy. All of a sudden, I'm like, will you shut up? This thing would not stop. It's like we finally had to just end the doggone appointment because this thing just went crazy. So when I stood up, finally, when it was time to end everything, I stood up and finally it made one last noise. It was like, "Ah!" And that was it. I was like, oh God, this thing has never embarrassed me. Now, the only time it would have embarrassed me, remember I told y'all about that day that it opened, the bag was defective. Now, that would have been embarrassing had it happened in front of someone. But the only other thing that might embarrass me is when it gets loud, okay? And today, I think it's the loudest I ever heard this thing, okay? One time, well, back when my sister's husband had passed, I was at the house the next day, and all of our cousins had come over and stuff. So we're sitting around the dining room table eating some Italian food because my realtor, who they're authentic Italian, okay? She and her family, and so I had gotten to know them, and then they had gotten to know my late brother-in-law because my late brother-in-law, well, my nephew used them as a realtor, and then my sister and brother-in-law also used them. So between us, I bought 2 houses. My sister and them, they sold a house, and I don't know if they bought another one because they did rentals still. Well, my sister still does. So my nephew helps her with that. And then my nephew purchased a condo. And so anyway, so they had gotten to know us and everything. My brother-in-law had been to their home, did some work for them, that type of thing. My realtor gave me the stove that I have because I didn't have a stove. She was like, I have a brand new double oven stove in my garage. She said it was defective. She was like, the back, she's like, the front left eye does not work on it. She was like, it works, but if you turn it above 3, it'll go out and won't work. And they said it was the ignition. I can't remember what it was, whatever it is. But anyway, that's all that was wrong with it. And so they were scheduled to get it fixed. But because it was 2020 and the pandemic, the people were like, listen, they weren't coming to fix nothing. They said, we're going to send you a new stove. So there she was with 2. So she ended up with another one just like it. And it's a double oven. She gave me this thing, and I just love this doggone stove. And I don't even use the front eye. I only use the front eye on the right side where I cook. And I'll use the 2 back eyes if I need to. But for the most part, I'm either using 1, 2 eyes at the most. I don't even use that left eye. But both ovens work, the top and the bottom. That is wonderful. I love that because there's been times where I've needed to put, if I'm baking some cookies or if I need to, I'm just rambling and going on. Let me stop, y'all. I know some of y'all like hearing story time. I'll go on and on, okay? But anyway, back to Oklahoma. So yeah, I stood up that last time and it made its final noise. And then it stopped. Haven't made a peep since. Nothing. I'm like, you would have to cut up in front of company today. So anyway, but it was funny. I laughed it off and my doctor laughed. And I wasn't embarrassed because I was in front of my doctor. But now, had I been anywhere else in front of others, like I said, when I was talking about my cousins, oh, it cut up then, but it wasn't as loud as this, but it was loud enough around that dinner table where we all were. It was like 7 or 8 of us around. We were around my sister's formal dining room table, so it sat 6 people at least. But we had more people squeezed in. And we were all sitting up there eating that authentic Italian food. And it was so good. Oh my goodness. My cousin was like, oh man. She was like, I've never had nothing like this, and me neither. But anyway, we were sitting up there eating, and all of a sudden, ostomy, I guess he was giving his seal of approval. He just kept on, and while people are eating, so I excused myself, of course. And this thing, it just kept on. And finally, once it calmed down, my food was cold by the time I got back to the table. And so my cousins were like, you could have stayed here. Shoot, we've heard noises before. I was like, that was just too much, okay? But anyway, so the day may come where I'm talking and you might hear it go, ah! So, usually I'll say either shut up, ostomy, or I'll say, okay, he's getting in on the conversation. Pay no mind. But it'll happen. Believe me, it will happen. And you would think that something this small would not get that loud. Wait a minute, think of gas, the regular way, much louder than that, okay? And it just does it. And it don't be nothing but air or whatever. So anyway, let me get off of here, you guys. So in 3 days, I'll be back. So I'll let you know, because see, I'm kind of scared of that sleep apnea thing. But I don't think that's going to disqualify me, because of the simple fact I qualified through the BMI. So, and I do have the Part D. So, I mean, although he had to say that I have sleep apnea, so I don't know if insurances are paying for the medicine if you have sleep apnea, which would give you that big copay. But keep in mind, remember, anytime there's a specialty drug, my copay has always been $40. It tops off at $40. So let's say they say that I don't qualify under GLP. Under my regular insurance, I would probably qualify. If I did qualify under that because of the sleep apnea, I would probably pay no more than $40 a month. And it would be forevermore, not something that's going to end in 2027. So we'll see. And so I would consider that a blessing if it works out that way. But I truly believe that I will be approved for it. It was a struggle, but I'm willing to put all that behind me. But boy, I tell you, wasn't that something, y'all? Okay, so it's over now. It is over. I sat there and watched with my beady eyes and the Magoos. I made sure. When I saw her and that number and I heard, beep, what noises a fax make, I saw it go through. And the paper thing came out, and she went to that copy machine, made my copies, made a copy for the file, and that was it. So I said, this is done complete, and it's done correctly. So I can't complain now. I cannot. So I think it will go smoothly, and it will be done. And I'm not even going to call them. I'm not going to call my pharmacist. One thing about it, once the medicine, if it's approved, and I'll get a notice on the thing, because when the Zofran, because I was wondering, how would I find out if the medicine is ready? I know your status changes on the app, but when the Zofran became ready, I ended up getting a text saying to check the thing. It says you have a medication that's ready for pickup. And so I went to the Meyer app, pulled up my meds, and sure enough, the message was there telling me that my Zofran was ready for pickup. So like I said, I will go and pick that up on tomorrow, and I will talk to the pharmacist and let her know what happened. And I'm gonna take this so that she'll see it. And I'm gonna let her know. I hate that this is all filled out because, well, they don't do pre-auths, but I mean, at least she can look at it and see what it looks like, so she can look at it and see what the form looks like, because I'm quite sure they've never filled one out, and I don't know if they've seen one. But according to my doctor, this form is totally different from what they were doing from the beginning. He said this was simple, made easy, layman's term, the whole 9 yards. He was like, he's like, our regular pre-auth forms are just horrible. So my doctor was very impressed with that, and he was happy. And so was his secretary. She was like, now we're talking. She was like, okay. And so I said, I hope you made some blank copies. She was like, I sure did for the other 3 patients, because they're having trouble too. So she made copies of the form, and she said, I'm getting theirs filled out also. She said, so I'm gonna send them, send all of them in. So they should get theirs too. So I would like to think that I led the charge with this, so we'll see what happens. Okay, you guys, so I'll keep you updated, and I'll come back if I get the medicine once it's in my hot little hands, unless something comes up before then. And so by the end of the week, you'll probably hear from me. I've been on here too long. How long I've been talking? Oh my goodness. Been on here 50 minutes. I'm sorry, y'all. All that rambling. So for those of you who like hearing me ramble, there you have it, okay? So I'll talk to you later. You could tell that my mood has lifted and things have shifted. We're getting ready to get going. Ready to roll. Talk to you later, and may God bless you all. Bye-bye.